Welcome to our Little Red Robin painting tutorial, a video that will guide you through each step to creating your own masterpiece using our matching painting kit. If you haven't already bought the kits, they're on sale on our website for just £18. They include everything you need and will be posted right through a letterbox. They'll also give you access to an uncut tutorial, perfect for painting along to in real time. With this video, you'll need to pause at each stage until you've caught up. If you already have all the materials you need at home, then you'll still be able to paint along easily, as we're just using the three primary colours with white and black. Okay, now we're ready. We're going to start by sketching out our branch. Make a mark just below the halfway mark of the canvas on each side and join together with a slight dip in the middle. Now it's time to sketch out your robin. In your Festive painting kit you'll find a little bit of help with this, but if you do want to freehand then just follow me. Making sure that it's in the middle of your canvas, sketch out a large central circle about a centimetre away from the branch at the bottom. Then on the top left quarter of that circle, draw a second circle about half the size. Join the two circles with a curved line for the back of the bird and a straight line for the top of the breast. Carry on the line of the back to meet the branch, making one side of your tail, and then pencil out the inner side of the tail at the bottom. And using the straight line, connect this bottom point to where the straight line of the breast meets the top of the smaller circle. Where these intersect will be the top of your beak, which can also be sketched out using a straight line to where the curved back meets the smaller circle. This is just a rough sketch that we'll use as a guide, but proportions are important to get right in the early stages, so if you do want to use your guide as a reference, then please feel free to do so. Pencil over the outline of the robin, including the beak, and make sure your eye is drawn on the straight line connecting the beak with the back of the head. Lastly, draw on the feet, one with a straight line down to the branch, and the other at a slight outward angle. And once you're happy with your sketch, put your pencil away and take out your biggest brush out of the water. I'm aiming for a pale green-blue background with a slight fade from one to the other, as a soft hint towards the traditional landscape background. We're going to start by dabbing on the blue paint just on the top half of the canvas, around the edges. And then cleaning our brush with water and kitchen roll, and adding white dabs to the centre, around the bird. Now using your yellow and blue paint, you want to mix the green on your mixing palette, and when you're happy with the colour, use the same dabbing technique on the bottom half of the canvas. Add a little white to the section closest to the branch, as this will help us to create a lighter centre to highlight the robin. Now you want to put your brush back in the water and take out your sponge. We're simply going to blend all of our colours together, adding very little water if needed. Using a sponge is very much about trial and error, so figure out what pressure works best for you to get a nice even coverage for your base layer. You still want to be able to see the pencil lines through the paint, so if your paint seems a bit too thick, then you can gently swipe some off with your sponge and put the excess on the kitchen roll. I want to lighten mine up a bit more, so I'm going to add a bit of white, but this step should be up to you to get your desired colour and effect. If your colours aren't blending properly, you can either add a bit of water or add more pressure with your sponge. As I can still just about see my outline through the first layer, I'm going to add some deeper blues and greens around the outer edges of the canvas to make the whole thing pop a bit more. When you're happy with your background, we're going to mix together a selection of oranges and browns to start with as a base for our robin. Your brightest colour will be mixed with just the red and the yellow, but by adding a bit of blue, this will turn your orange varying shades of brown, depending on how much you put in it. To start with, you can add a little bit of black to make your palette of colours a bit more grayscale, which will work for the branch and the base of the back of our robin. Once you've achieved your desired mid-tone brown, use the side of your biggest brush and use the same motion you would if you were colouring in to paint on your branch. Using the same technique, paint over the line of the back of your robin all the way down to the tail. As it's a base layer, we want to cover a fair amount of the bird with this colour, and then we can build on top with the lighter and darker shades after. Use a touch of black to darken your brown on the palette and paint a thin, rough line on the bottom of your branch. To get a sharp, clean edge, you may want to turn your canvas round to give yourself a bit more control. You can now add on a few smaller branches at the end, but these don't need to be too distinct. In fact, most branches have darker bits that poke out a little, so to make yours look a bit more natural, run some darker bits of paint along the bottom and middle to create a rougher looking branch. We're now ready to add the little red breast, well, the base layer at least, which is going to be a burnt orange, so clean your brush out, and once you've mixed your desired colour on the palette with the red and the yellow, start putting on your brush strokes to the underside of your robin. Similar to how we covered bits of the bird in our mid-tone brown, use your orange colour to cover the underneath of the tail and the front of the face. You can cover this with lighter colours later, but it's a great start to put as much paint down on the canvas as possible, and then to build layers on top. Now we're going to add a slightly darker shade of orange to the bottom part of the breast and the top part of the tail, where you'd imagine a shadow to be, but just working on top of the brighter orange that we've already put down. The next step is to add some lighter touches, so you'll need to thoroughly clean your brush out using your kitchen roll to make sure all excess colour is removed, and use your white paint. Try to use the same pot as white as you used for the background. When we come to add the snow later, we'll want the brightest white possible, which ideally won't have other bits of paint in it. Start by painting the belly of your robin with the white, covering the last of the pencil lines and connecting the orange and brown parts. Using the same brush with minimal paint on it, lightly put on some feathers to your robin. The direction of the brush stroke should hint to the feathers, so follow the line of the bird from the eye to the tail and around the curves. Clear your brush of the white paint by pressing and turning your brush on the palette so the excess comes off. We now want to mix the colour in between our orange and mid-tone brown to cover the rest of the bird, which should then start to take shape. You can add flashes of colour onto your bird until you've found the right shade. Even if it's not the perfect colour, adding hints of another warmth or coolness will definitely create another dimension to the body. Mixing colours is always a bit of trial and error, but with your robin you can use this to your advantage. As long as the lightness and the darkness are correct and proportionate, then flashes of random colour would actually be a great touch. With the middle tone you've used to connect the darker brown on the back and the orange breast, you can add a bit more depth to your branch by brushing the same colour along the top of it. Now it's time to add some detail. Trading in your big brush for the small one, we're going to use our black to paint on the eye and the beak. In some respect, painting is a lot like cooking, and it's very easy to add but much harder to take away. Try to apply this when putting on your darker shades, especially with details. To get a really sharp, clean line, you'll need the perfect amount of paint on the tip of your brush and a pretty steady hand. Still using your smallest brush and your black paint, create shadows on the feet and the branch by putting small amounts on the underside of each. You now want to mix a dark browny orange colour to add definition to the face, so still using your small brush, paint a dark oval shape around the eye and bring it forward to the top of the beak. With this same shade of dark brown, we need to add a bit more definition to the back feathers of the bird, on the wings. You can choose either your small brush or your large for this. I actually love how unpredictable the large brush is, and it seems to give a lighter brush stroke sweeping over the layer below. When you're happy with the shadows on the upper part of your bird's back, we're going to brighten him or her up with some orange. The section directly under the eye should have a little hint of bright orange, and you can add little layers of this all around the front of the face to make sure no background is still visible and to highlight where the feathers would be. Using the same bright orange, you can add little brush strokes to the upper part of the chest, which will act both as a highlight and will give a feathered effect. We want to add a little glint to the robin's eye and a highlight to the top of the beak, so use your small brush and dip it straight in the white and carefully lay on a little at a time. And now to add a bit more definition to both the beak and the eye, clean your brush and put some black around the white bits. Getting your face really close to the canvas is a strange but effective way of making sure you get a really precise line. We're now going to add some snow to the branch. Our biggest brush is perfect for this, as you can dab on little bits of white at a time and they'll be applied in uneven dots in a straight line. Remember, you can always add more, so just like I mentioned before, start off lightly until you've mastered the technique and then add as much snow as you like, avoiding putting too much directly under the robin. I'm going to work in the last little details of the bird using the same brush with the white paint and adding highlights to the belly and sporadically on the middle part of the wing. You can switch to your small brush for highlighting the head and the face if you'd like to, but I'm going to stick with my bigger brush and just be really careful to only put a bit of paint on. For the feet. Birds' feet will always look a little bit weird, especially when painted, so we're not going to draw too much attention to them and are just going to put 3 short lines curved around the branch on each foot and then a small straight line horizontally at the top to connect them, with a slightly darker shade of brown to the branch. Using a lighter colour that should still be wet on your mixing palette, highlight the same lines on the left side of each. Now looking at my robin, the back does look a little bit flat, so we're going to mix a deeper and darker colour to give them a bit more depth. I've mixed all 3 of my primary colours here with a hint of black, and I'm just going to apply it very softly with brush strokes to the edges of the bird's back, a little bit to the base of the chest where the orange and the white paint meet, and under the wing and the tail to create a shadow. By adding a bit more red to my dark colour, I'm making a really rich tone that I'm going to add to my chest to blend the shadows under the beak and at the bottom of the body. Adding the final details on your robin should basically be about finding any parts you think look a little flat or featherless and layering on either a mid-tone, a shadow or a highlight to add the needed depth and detail. My robin, this means finding a middle ground to connect all the highlights and the lowlights and bring it all together with a consistent colour flow throughout. When using your big brush to draw the curved line of the back, you may have created a slightly uneven spread of the paint. So use your smallest brush and a dark colour to neaten up the curve and go over the line. Turning your canvas is a good little trick to make sure you've got the right control to keep the line sharp. Now is a good time to just go over the feet and the detail around the face with your darker colour to really define everything. When you're happy with your robin, we're going to add some berries. I'm going to put 3 on each side, one slightly hidden by the branch, one in front of it and one on top of it, making them look attached without actually having to paint the little bits connecting them. We can add the brighter red on later, so start by just painting little circles on in a base colour. Once you've got the composition of your berries in place, you can colour them in with the red paint. Just like with the branch, you want a darker shade to be on the underside and a lighter and brighter shade in the middle and the top. Using the red that you've used for the berries, you can put little flashes of red in the robin's chest, which will really tie the painting together and work against the green background. Okay, so the last step is to add our snow. Make sure you've covered your table for this bit as it can get a little messy. You'll need to give your big brush a really good clean and open up the next pot of white paint. Don't worry if you've already dipped into it, just try to remove any colours that may have crept in there and make sure you're using the brightest white possible. We don't want to cover your robin with white dots, so with a sheet of kitchen roll, fold it to the size of your bird and place it gently over the top. Flicking paint at the canvas is all about getting the right consistency of water to paint. Too much water and it may drip down the canvas and not give strong enough dots, and too much paint can either mean that it simply won't come off the brush, or if it does, it will be in big lumps. You may want to practice on your mixing palette first. An easy way to control the flicks once you've gained the right consistency is to tap your paintbrush against the other one, and then you can make them heavier and more frequent by tapping with a bit more pressure. Now for the last bit, make sure your smallest brush is completely clean of paint and add some snow to the tops of your berries. Add the final highlights with your white paint to the eye and the beak and the bottom of the belly to really make them stand out. You can also add a bit more snow to the bits that look a bit bare or that your kitchen roll had covered. And there we have it! Your little red robin painting should be a complete masterpiece. Please do let us know how you got on. If you did take any pictures and are planning to upload to social media, please do remember to tag Crafternoon, as we love seeing your own creations. Thank you so much for watching. We really hope you enjoyed yourself and are proud of your artwork, and most importantly that your festive and creative spirits have been lifted.